It's that time of the year again where we look back at the bikes of 2020 of the World Tour, men's and women's, and work out which one was the best, which brands, which models, which group sets.
And maybe we can answer that age-old question of rim brakes or disc brakes.
It's like my second favourite question, after lightweight or aero. Let's do it. We've developed our very own highly sophisticated scoring system to help us rank the bikes and equipment of the 2020 World Tour.
And we're being particularly ruthless this year because we're only counting World Tour wins. And that's one-day races, stage race overalls and individual stages, as well as World Time Trial and road race titles.
Which means we're not counting other jersey classification winners in our highly sophisticated algorithm.
But some standout performances are going to go unaccounted for, such as Mavi Garcia's gutsy Strada Bianchi performance.
Yeah, that means there's no points scored there for Cipollini, Campagnolo or rim brakes. And the same goes for Sam Bennett and his heroic green jersey title in the Tour. That counts for nothing in this video at least. Also, other riders such as Annemiek van Vleuten. She won a huge amount in 2020, but it doesn't help Scott in the algorithm as much as you might think, because only a couple of those races were actually at the top tier World Tour.
So to begin with, let's kick us off with the men's World Tour peloton and the top 10 brands.
We'll begin with some honourable mentions of bikes that just missed out on the top 10 but delivered some very memorable stage wins and victories. So Ridley, 2 stage wins at the Tour de France, courtesy of Caleb Ewan. Lapierre, 4 sprint victories with Arnaud Démare, dominating the sprints at the Giro d'Italia, and then 2 more at the Vuelta as well with the young French climber David Gaudu.
Factor, of course, made a fantastic return to World Tour as well, with 2 emotional wins at the Giro and Vuelta for Alex Dowsett and Dan Martin, respectively. But our point system takes no prisoners.
No, in 10th place is Villiers. Villiers sponsors Astana, and they took a monument win courtesy of an informed Jakob Fuglsang, and then also the Queen stage of the Tour de France under Miguel Angel Lopez. But they also sponsor Total Direct Energy, which meant that they also had wins courtesy of Nicola Bonifacio, winning a stage of Paris-Nice before the COVID break.
And in 9th place, we've got Cannondale Bikes. And in 2020, they were piloted by Team EF Education Pro Cycling. And the American squad had a great start to the season.
Yeah, fantastic performance. Stage wins in all 3 of the Grand Tours, as well as the overall at the Dauphiné. But the really interesting thing for me is that only one of EF's wins came aboard the Cannondale System 6 Aero bike. All of the others came aboard the Supersix Evo high mod, sort of all-rounder lightweight climbing bike, which, knowing what we know about aerodynamics, I think is really interesting.
So maybe if they'd have sort of invested in the aero bike a little bit more often, they might have featured a little bit higher up in our top 10.
Who knows?
Who knows? In 8th place, we've got Scott Bikes, and this was their final year partnered with the Australian team Mitchelton Scott, and they'll be aboard Bianchi bikes next year in 2021.
Yeah, they will. I mean, their sort of points tally was definitely hurt by the early withdrawal during the Giro d'Italia, and they actually didn't win a single stage of any Grand Tour this year either, which is probably a bit of a disappointment for them.
Yeah, not ideal.
Yeah, and in 7th place we have Canyon, and the most notable victory for Canyon bikes this year has to be Mathieu van der Poel's amazing win at the Ronde van Vlaanderen.
Very good.
It was sensational. But also they scored points with Arkea Samsic as well, another second tier team.
As well as Alpecin Phoenix as well.
Well, yeah, but the thing is they sponsor 3 sort of teams in our list. But the 2 second-tier teams, Alpecin Phoenix and Arkea Samsic, scored the majority of the points because their World Tour team, Movistar, actually had a rather disappointing year by their high standard. Yeah, normally they come top of the World Tour team rankings. 6th place, we've got Cervelo being the sponsor of Sunweb, who, the youngest team at the Tour de France, didn't stop and winning 3 really exciting stage wins, and the one-day classic Flèche Wallonne, courtesy of the super talented Mark Hirschi. Also, a couple of really good TT wins, courtesy of Soren Kragh Andersen.
Pretty impressive. But Cervelo will be the sponsor of Jumbo Visma in 2021. And if this year is anything to go by, they're going to be finishing pretty high up the list next year.
Yeah, they might be going up a few places.
I think they will.
Cervelo narrowly missed out on the top 5 by just 5 points as they were edged out by Trek, and it was a decent year for the American brand. Started well at the Tour Down Under, 2 stage wins and the overall for a resurgent Richie Porte. I mean, yeah, what a fantastic season he had. But they also had a couple of classics wins as well. First, Jasper Stuyven at Omloop Het Nieuwsblad, and then Gent Wevelgem with Mads Pedersen. So a nice spread across different terrains, but like some of the other brands in our list, they failed to win a stage at any of the Grand Tours.
And narrowly missing out on the podium in 4th place is the brand that's behind the current Tour de France champion, and that's Colnago, claiming 4 stage wins at the Tour de France, as well as the overall, and very standout performances in the Giro and Vuelta too.
Yeah, technically as well, it's Colnago's first ever overall victory at the Tour de France.
Very good. And the bronze medal goes to Pinarello, and would you believe it, they didn't actually score any points before the COVID break and had a pretty disappointing Tour de France by their own standards.
They did, but it all changed at the Giro. What a dominant performance, 7 stage wins as well as the overall. And I just loved seeing this kind of more exciting, attacking, aggressive racing coming from Ineos and the Pinarellos. It was great to see.
Very good. And coming in at 2nd place, we've got Bianchi.
An absolutely mega year for the Italian brand with its Celeste bikes. 2 monuments, a Grand Tour and countless stage wins. And that's before you factor in how heartbreakingly close Primož Roglič came to winning the overall at the Tour de France. And as we mentioned, they are moving over to support Green Edge Cycling next year, but I can't imagine them winning quite so many races without the likes of Van Aert, Roglič and Sepp Kuss and, well, all the others sat pedalling those bikes.
But Ollie, the winner is, as I'm sure many of you will have expected, it's of course Specialized. And it's no surprise really, because they've got 2 World Tour teams riding on their bikes, and with the spread of riders they've got, they can win at virtually any race.
Yes, Specialized, it's the bike of the newly crowned world champion Julian Alaphilippe. And to think that they came top of this list, even though they didn't win a monument and they didn't win a Grand Tour. They just had the sheer volume of victories across the board everywhere else. Well, they nearly won a monument if Alaphilippe hadn't celebrated too early.
Yeah, close.
But they didn't need it in the end anyway to come top in our list. And they even bookended the season with wins of, well, stage 1 of the Tour Down Under, and then also a stage of the 3 days to Pan with Yves Lampaert right at the end.
Pretty impressive stuff. And they're going to be continuing on with their sponsorship of Quickstep and Bora in 2021, so we can probably expect to see them at the top of this list again.
Onto the Women's World Tour this year, and unfortunately they have far fewer race days than the men, and therefore far fewer races and opportunities to score points within our system. Also, no 3-week Grand Tour for the women yet, and we hope that this parity improves in the future. And it was also quite disappointing this year to see Paris-Roubaix cancelled, both the men and the women. This, Paris-Roubaix, I'm so looking forward to that for the women, but hopefully it's going to be a highlight of 2021.
Yeah, fingers crossed. We'll kick off with 8th place, and it's Cannondale. Elisa Balsamo of Valcar Travel and Services took the final stage in the Ceratizit Tour by La Vuelta, and that gave the brand its only World Tour points of the year. Yeah,
in 7th place, it's a tie between 3 brands which each scored a victory at the Giro Rosa, and they are Chapter 2, Ridley and Lapierre. And also, our brutal scoring system means victories such as, Lizzie Banks, well, not victory, but Lizzie Banks' brilliant performance, 2nd place at the GP de Plouay, doesn't count.
Go uncounted for, yeah. And in 6th place, it's Liv with a trio of wins in the Giro Rosa by Marianne Vos.
Yeah. 5th place is Scott. Now, well, Scott had a really strong start to the season with Annemiek van Vleuten netting a load of wins. But their kind of overall score was sort of hurt by the fact that she had to abandon the Giro Rosa and then miss out on potentially the overall victory, which she looks set to do.
And just missing out on the podium in 4th place is Orbea, and they had Lisa Brenner taking a stage and the overall at the Ceratizit Tour by La Vuelta and netting the Basque brand some good World Tour points.
Yeah, and into the top 3 now. First up, Cervelo. a great start for the Canadian brand at the Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race, and then also bookending the season by again winning the 3 days to Japan as well. So great, but they will have been disappointed not to have got a victory at the Giro Rosa.
But just as the men's team will, the new Jumbo-Visma women's team will also be riding Cervelo bikes in 2021, so we can expect big things for the brand next year.
In second place, missing out on the win, is Trek. Most of their wins came thanks to, well, the dominant performances of Lizzie Deignan and the sort of double act she formed with Elisa Longo Borghini. I mean, victories at the GP de Plouay, La Course, and also Liège, Bastogne-Liège, and the only team time trial win of the year in the women's peloton, thanks to the Giro Rosa.
And of course, that means our winner is Specialized Bikes, just the same as they did in the men's. And they've got the world champion, Anna van der Breggen, which has rounded up also the World Time Trial Championships, as well as the Giro Rosa and her 6th consecutive win at the Flèche Wallonne. Yeah,
big victories for Chantal Black and Julian de Hoore as well, backing that up. I mean, they basically just dominated.
Very impressive.
So on to the actual specific models that were the best bikes in 2020. This differs from the brand because, as you are aware, brands have several different models often. So it's interesting to see which bike is the most successful within a team. Some teams limit their riders to just one bike, such as the Pinarello F12 in the case of Ineos. But other teams, such as Trek-sponsored teams, they have like the Madone and the Amonda as well. Yeah, so it's quite interesting to see. We'll put the complete top 10 in the description below, but we'll just highlight the top 3 of both the men's and the women's for you. So in third place for the women, it's the Cervelo S5, which is the choice of Sunweb. But interesting that the R5 is beaten there by the S5, the aero bike, slightly heavier.
Coming in second place is the Trek Emonda, ridden by Trek Segafredo team, and they've chosen that over the more aero Madone.
Yeah, so again, that's flipped the other way, which again means the winner, somewhat unsurprisingly, is Specialized with the Tarmac SL7, which came out this year and has, just
very
done
impressive
very well.
bike.
And again, it's replaced the Venge. So they don't use the Venge anymore. All the Specialized teams are just riding that Tarmac SL7. On to the men's top bike models now, and we'll put again that full top 10 in the description below. But what I wanted to point out was the 11th place, just narrowly missing out on the top 10 by 5 points, was the Pinarello Bolide TT bike, the 11th best bike model, which was almost solely down, it was entirely solely down to Filippo Ganna.
Claiming 11th place purely by himself.
Amazing.
Very impressive.
But then, on to the top 3.
Yeah, so in third place, we've got the Colnago V3RS, ridden by none other than Tadej Pogacar, and he's ridden both the rim brake and disc brake variants across this year.
Yes, second place, maybe a surprise for some people, it's the Tarmac from Specialized, the SL7. So it's missed out on the top spot. Now, it's become a bike that's favoured by sprinters and climbers alike. We first saw it take its first win with Remco Evenepoel, taking the overall at the Tour of Poland. But the reason why it's kind of not won the overall is because our algorithm is brutal. And some of the early victories at the start of the year were aboard the Tarmac SL6, not the SL7.
Well, he did say it was ruthless.
Yeah, so things like Max Schachmann, Paris-Nice, and other races at the start of the year as well. So, yeah. That's
but it does lead us on to the winner of the best bike in the 2020 men's peloton. It is the Bianchi XR4 Ultra, which is pretty impressive, as ridden by Jumbo-Visma.
Yes, and a rim brake bike.
Yeah, very important that.
On to brakes and group sets, and all the teams are using the big 3, so Campagnolo, Shimano and SRAM. And in third place on the men's, it's SRAM, but only 2 World Tour teams are using it.
Yeah, and unsurprisingly in second place is Campagnolo, used by 3 World Tour teams.
But they did get the Tour de France,
which is the biggest one.
That's the most important one.
The big one.
Which means the most successful group set in the men's is Shimano. But kind of unsurprising when pretty much every other team has been winning races on the stuff. Sadly, on the women's side of things, Campagnolo scored 0 points. in fact, 0. I mean, if only Mavi Garcia had held on at Strada Bianchi, they would have got some points.
And that puts Shimano into 2nd place, and thanks to Bols Dolmans and Trek Segafredo using it, they have put SRAM into 1st place, making them the winner.
That is interesting.
Yeah, very impressive. And we'll finish with perhaps the most hotly debated question, and that is rim brake or disc brakes. And it's been a bit of a sticking point throughout the year, especially with many teams using disc brakes, but Jumbo-Visma came along and then just winning week in, week out on rim brakes.
Yeah, and many brands have been launching, bike models that are exclusively, disc brake only. Hashtag save the rim brake. And you only need to look under the comments of many GCN tech videos to see how many of you guys are very passionate about rim brakes.
Very passionate.
Yeah, and their continued existence. But we can kind of settle it, I think, almost once for all.
Maybe once and for all, yeah.
Yes, the most successful braking system
for both the men's and women's
in 2020 was disc brakes.
Yeah, very impressive.
Like more than double the number of victories on disc brakes this year
a lot.
Than rim brakes, and that's despite Ineos and Jumbo-Visma having really successful, really successful seasons and scoring many victories on rim brakes. I think in spite of the domination of disc brakes this year, this debate is going to continue to rage on. Yeah. But next year is going to be interesting because it might just be Ineos as the only team on rim brakes in the World Tour next year.
Yeah, with Cervelo and Bianchi changing teams.
Yes, so Jumbo have been using rim brake Bianchis, but Bianchi are moving to Green Edge and they're going to be using the disc brake Bianchis, we understand. And Cervelo don't officially make a rim brake bike anymore. So you'd imagine that Jumbo-Visma are going to have to use disc brakes on their Cervelos.
Be forced upon them.
Well, I guess we'll find out.
Have to wait and see. So there you have it. They are the favourite bikes from the 2020 Peloton. But what are your favourite bikes? Let us know in the comments section down below. And if you like this video, give it a big thumbs up too.
Yeah. See you in the next one.
See you later.
Bye.